We're going to deal with that last option of subtracting integer. As always, when you deal with integers, especially with the subtraction, think that subtraction is adding the opposite. Now the last case or the fourth case of subtracting integer is when you have to subtract a negative number from a negative number. For example, in this case, -6 minus -4. So you are subtracting -4 from -6, or in this case you are subtracting -6 from -4. In both cases we just have to add the opposite. It's very simple. When you add the opposite, you keep the first number as it is, you get -6, but you add, you make that subtraction sign to addition, but add the opposite. This was -4, so make it +4. So -6 plus 4. We know the answer based on the DBS or adding integer rule, the difference between the absolute value, what sign the bigger absolute value has. The bigger absolute value is 6, 6 has negative. So therefore your answer should go into -2. Now this is the same thing, subtracting a negative from a negative. For example, you are subtracting -6 from -4. So you just do the same thing, -4 plus, but you add the opposite, -4 plus 6. Now what happens here, taking the difference between the absolute value, what sign the bigger absolute value has, same thing, the rule of adding integers, but you get the answer as +2. That's because of the nature of the numbers. It's not because you cannot generalize like the answer would be always negative or the answer would be always positive, because after you rewrite depends on what kind of numbers you have, because based on the difference between the absolute values, sometimes it can turn into positive, sometimes it can turn into negative. Now let's go to review all what we did with these subtracting integers. Let's finalize that. There were like 4 cases. The first one, we said 1 minus 5. You subtract a positive number from a positive number, 5 from 1, but you subtract. The second one, 1 minus -5, where you subtract a negative number from a positive number. The third one, we said negative number, but you subtract a positive number from it. The last one, from a negative number you subtract a negative number. So this was the first case, this was the second case, this was the third case, and this was the fourth case. In all cases you have to add the opposite. In this case you will add the opposite as 1 plus -5. In the second case you will add the opposite as 1 plus 5, add the opposite. Now the third case you will add the opposite, -1 plus -5. So then the last one, -1 plus 5. So the answer for these 4 cases is entirely different. The first one, the answer is 1 minus 5 is 1 plus -5. So the answer is -4. 1 minus -5, you subtract a negative number from a positive number. When you rewrite you get 1 plus 5. Therefore your answer is going to be 6 for that. But the third one is you a positive number. This was +5. You subtract it from -1. So when you rewrite you get -1 plus -5. So the answer is going to be -6. -1 minus 5 is -6. You add the opposite because you are evaluating with addition rules here. So these are all kinds of adding. Now the last one, -1 plus 5. So -1 minus -5, when you rewrite into addition you get -1 plus 5 and your answer turns into be +4. Even though the numbers are same, the answer should be correct. For solving equations, so for calculating the slope every time, that y2 minus y1, x2 minus x1, when there are integers involved, unless you get these numbers correct, you may not get the right answer. So for subtracting integers, think that there are 4 options. That's why we have a lot to learn over there. Not only one option, but there are 4 ways whether you have to deal with subtracting integers.